Hey, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Thrivecast. This is Stuart Joseph, and I'm joined out every Friday with my good friend Bevelyn Bravo. How you doing, Bevelyn?
Good, thank you. Thank you for listening in.
Today on the show, we actually have a really good, really special guest for you guys. During the birth of modern-day skateboarding, Dennis Martinez was a rising star, and he was the 1977 World Freestyle Champion, the 1978 U.S. Champion. Dennis was featured in all the magazines and had plenty of sponsors. Between sponsorships, appearances all over the country, fame, fortune, and success, Martinez would fall victim of the clutches of addiction. Dennis's downward spiral with an addiction to cocaine quickly led to one of the more popular addictions here in Southern California, crystal meth. His story would go from skate decks to prison bars, hospital beds, drug dens, guns, and ultimately hopelessness. In 1996, Martinez would begin his road to redemption. His results have been nothing short of extraordinary. Dennis Martinez has dedicated his life to rehabilitating and being a voice for those that feel voiceless. He is an inspiration and an encouragement to anyone that is seeking to serve the lost and broken. His largest success has been establishing the training center here in San Diego, California, which is a drug and rehabilitation center located in the Spring Valley area. He also works as a volunteer prison chaplain and hosts the annual X-Fest here in San Diego. Hey, Dennis, thanks for taking the time, man. I know you're super busy in the community to join us here on Thrivecast.
Well, thank you for having me.
So let's just jump right into it, man. You know, back in the day, you helped innovate the culture of skateboarding, winning world championships, being featured in every skateboard magazine that was around at the time, and something had to happen to trigger your downfall. What do you feel that was?
Well, looking back, I mean, not even looking back too far, I used to think that skateboarding had a big part of it. But as I began to get older and more wisdom, I began to see that it was me that was the downward spiral. It was based on all the choices I made, and every choice I made had a consequence, whether it be good or bad. And so my downfall was the choices I made, and I paid a heavy price for it.
Hey, that takes a lot of courage to admit that too, man. You know, a lot of people look for other avenues to blame, but you're literally taking it on like it was me. It was my choices.
Well, yeah. I mean, for me, that's why I stayed out after I got clean and sober. I stayed out of the industry so long, and I shouldn't have. You know, the very sport that I loved, that you didn't even have to pay me, I loved it as a little kid. You know, I stayed away because of fear that, I had a thought in my head that, if I get back into it, that I could repeat the same cycle. And I wasn't about to do that. But as I got older and got more wise, I understood that it had nothing to do with skateboarding. It had everything to do with me.
And coming forward to today, are you kind of like a role model? Do you look at yourself as a role model for younger skateboarders?
Well, I'd like to, because now I'm full bore back into the industry, and
right.
And I'm taking baby steps in there, and making sure all my I's are dotted and T's are crossed. But yes, my role this time is more of a teacher and a role model per se, but not just with the kids or the young kids, but my peers, guys that I grew up with that are still stuck in the game.
Okay. So do you feel like success came too fast, and if it didn't come so fast, you would have had more of a shot to live a different lifestyle?
Well, I mean, this is one of those statements that you always hear, I am who I am today because of my past, but I sure would love to have a redo on that, because I think because what I know now, I would be able to implement it back then. But back then, yeah, I think I was too young to handle everything that came my way. I wanted something too fast. I did whatever it takes to get it, and so I paid a dear price for it.
So you talk, reading stuff about you. You said that your drug use started casually, but later it would consume your life. When did you first realize that this was getting out of hand, and did you listen to that inner voice the first time around?
I didn't listen to that inner voice, because if I did, I knew right at the moment that I was going to do that. That I heard that voice, and now I look back and I know whose voice it was that was telling me, don't do it. But I did it anyway because I wanted to be just like Mike, that old saying.
So, you turned from selling your personal treasures, stealing to commit crimes to feed your addiction, ultimately selling your world championship trophy for dope. What do you think could have prevented you from doing that?
I don't know. To be honest with you, don't do drugs. I mean, that would have prevented me in a big way. And again, it was my choices, but people have to understand about drugs, and most people don't. And the grip that it had on me, changed me.
Right.
And when it changed me, my decisions changed and my consequences changed. And so, again, I paid a dear price for that.
Yeah, that's I definitely can understand. When you're under addiction, you can do things that you normally wouldn't do, to feed your addiction. I know I've heard a lot of people doing things when I was younger. Do you feel like there was a lack of support?
No, not a lack of support. I think I had great support, but I wasn't listening to that support. My parents, great parents, stayed together until my dad passed away, and they supported me, and they gave me all kinds of parental wisdom and stuff like that. Again, but I was in my role, and nobody was going to tell me anything. I had to find out for myself.
And
Right.
what about those around you, around the industry? Were they there for support or?
No, because everybody in the industry that I was with was doing the same thing. You know what I mean? It was like it was one big party, and we controlled the whole industry.
You guys did too back then.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So in 1996, it finally broke down. You hit rock bottom and you said, "Fuck this, man. It's time for a change." What inspired that moment?
Well, inspired that moment is by giving my life to God, and that inspired my moment to break everything down. So whether I'm on the radio or if I'm in front of President Obama or whoever, I'm not ashamed to tell anybody how I got clean and sober. And because of that one right decision, my life has changed. But it was definitely the rock bottom. I don't know how many rock bottoms I had, but I had many rock bottoms, but that was probably the pinnacle rock bottom of all rock bottoms.
Yeah, because I was going to say, that inner voice that God speaking through you or speaking to you, had to have come on other occasions. You know what I mean? Earlier. And that's what I was saying earlier, that inner voice, you didn't listen to it the first time. What was so different about this time? Like, what in your heart did you know, like, this is it?
I think this last time when I said was it, my mom said something to me, and she was like cradling like air guitar. She was cradling a little baby, and she kind of was looking down like, that's me. She's holding me as a little baby, and she said, never in my wildest dreams did I ever think that you would grow up to be a drug addict, or to grow up to be a junkie, or to grow up to be a criminal, and that broke my heart. And I think that was one of the catapults. And the other one was in the midst of a suicide. And that inner voice I did listen to, I did hear that. I saw God speaking through my mom, and she was begging me to, turn myself into the hospital, and I'm glad I did. I cowered out, and I'm glad I did.
Definitely. So what's your personal mission today?
If you, in a nutshell, in my latter days, I used to win trophies. And now it's people. And so people, I don't call them my trophy, but I call them, that's what my focus is helping people overcome what I was able to overcome. And there was specific people in my life that helped me to get to that point, and I know God strategically placed people in certain areas in my life to help guide me, to where I am today.
Yeah. So, in your opinion, why is it so easy for folks to go back to jail instead of getting rehabilitated?
Well, let's see. If we're dealing with drugs, and I would say 80% of people that are incarcerated were under the influence of a substance, whether it be drugs, pharmacia, pharmaceutical, alcohol, whatever. Most of the people that I've met inside the joint or jails have committed a crime under the influence. So the reason why it's so hard, unless you break that addiction will always pull you down. For me, I had to rob to get the money, to get the dope, to get the needle, to get the hotel room, to get the girl. That was my life until I overcame every one of those little obstacles that were in my way. They were all little obstacles, but put them together, they were a Goliath. And I had to deal with it, and I had to deal with it in an incredible way in order for me to have what I have today.
So how can the training center assist folks?
Excuse me?
How can the training center be of assistance to folks that are trying to get rehabilitated?
Well,
But what is the training center?
Well, the
Can you
training
tell us
center,
about that?
yeah, the training center is I like to call it like a watering hole, and it's like a safe haven for guys that whether they've been mandated by probation or parole, whether they came on their own, whether they came off the street or however they got there. I like to think it's a safe haven for them to come and, you know, try to get their life back. A lot of them want to get their life back, but a lot of them aren't done.
Yeah, it's good to have somebody there to support you in taking the first step.
Right. Absolutely. And, you know, because I've been there, done that, you know, I'm not a softie when it comes to this, because if you look at a person's life, as I valued my World Championship Cup, which everybody, if you were to ask anybody what a World Championship Cup, what the price is, everybody would give the word priceless.
Yeah.
Now, when you put that silver cup that I won, the World Championship Cup, next to a human being, which one is really priceless? And hopefully everybody would say the human being, because that's exactly right. So I want these guys to understand what value they have, even though if they're broken down, downtrodden. I tell them how much God loves them. He always has, he always will.
Yeah. Yeah.
And Dennis, I know at the training center that you've given an opportunity for the guys, if they want to give back, because I know many of them, they want to do something, you know, to give back to the community they took from.
Yeah.
And you started Off the Streets. Can you tell us more about Off the Streets?
Sure. It's just a simple remedy. It's none of us invented it. I mean, whoever did, you know, I'll give God the glory again, but it's like these poisonous snakes. It's amazing how these poisonous snakes, they bite you. They will use the very venom that's killing you as the antidote. And so these guys destroyed the neighborhoods, and no better persons to go back into the neighborhood and to reach the neighborhood than these guys. And so, yes, using these guys, what happens is they get a self-worth. Before they did things all for the wrong reason. Now it's, you know, it's all for the right reason, and it makes you feel good. It makes you feel good to go back and do something good, that you do have some type of value. Society says you know you're junk, or you're never going to amount to anything. You might even hear from the family members, and rightly so, up to a certain extent, it's true. But in God's eyes, they're very important to Him, and so this is the kind of what I drive into these guys, that they do have value, that God wants to use them, and it's time to man up. It's time to put those childish things away, to grow up. Boys make excuses, but men, you know, men change.
And in what ways do they give back?
Beautifully said.
Oh, well, how they give back, we take them back in, we do a youth diversion, and it's something that we started back in 2008 in Southeast San Diego, and the community came together, and we were getting tired of all the youth 17 and under, and let's just say 17 and under, but it doesn't matter, 18 on up, people were dying. And some years it was 12 to 19 deaths a year. And so the community came together and said enough was enough. And so I already had a program for me that I was already taking and converting these guys and going back into the community and doing wherever we could go to give back. And so I got a call from a probation agent, a friend of mine, and she said, hey, we want to add your group to what we're building here. Are you in? And I didn't even, you know, I did that whole saying, let me pray about it. I was like, we've already prayed about it. Let's do this. And so it's grown.
We're ready for the call.
We're ready for the call. And it's because, you know, lives are being taken every second, every day. And and we have to get out there.
Dude, I wish there's more. I really pray and hope there's more people out there like you, man, because you speak with such conviction and passion when you're talking about this. It's really good to see that somebody's in this line of work for the right reasons and not just for, you know, a paycheck or whatever. You know what I mean?
Well, you know, there is a lot of people out there. Let me tell you that there's a lot of people out there doing a lot of good work, hard work, and you know, a lot of times it might go unnoticed, but you know, the people like us that do this, we know who they are, and it doesn't go unnoticed. And you know, sometimes there's money and sometimes they're not. Some organizations, when they lost their contract, they bow out, and for us, it's not about the contract or the money. It's about a life. And what is the value of a life? That's what I keep talking about. Yeah. What is the value of a life? It's priceless.
And I think that's what we're going to title the show today, is what's the value of a life? That's definitely the perfect way to say that.
And how do you at the training center, what kind of services do you provide to help these men that are trying to change their life and get back into society after serving 40 or 50 years in prison?
Yeah.
What kind of life skills, because I'm sure they need a lot. I mean, they probably don't even know what a cell phone is if they've been in prison that many years. And how do they get back in the workforce, and how do they adjust to society again? How do you help them do that?
Well, as far as a cell phone, you know, they know what a cell phone is because they're inside the prison and stuff. But how do you use one, basically? You know what I'm saying? And so it's all on the job training, you know, when they get out. And what we did is we separated our program. We're a state licensed and certified, meaning that we're recognized throughout the United States and we meet the criteria so that people can send them, whether it be court ordered or however they come to us, and law enforcement. So that's what the judges look for. That's what the state looks for. So we met all the requirements and everything like that. But these guys that come out, there's two types of people. I work with guys that are just mainline guys that just, you know, in and out, in and out, in and out. And then now we're developing and building our lifer program. The difference between a lifer and somebody that just does a couple of years in and out and just goes in and out, there's a big difference. The guys that did life understand about freedom because their freedom was taken away based on a choice they made. And I have a lot of guys that have committed horrendous acts and have taken people's lives and they can never go back and change it. And so what I love about them is that they've made the proper steps to get out. They've changed inside a lot of self-help groups, but what they don't know and what they don't understand is being reintegrated into society. And so we named our lifer program Giving Life Back to Lifers. And we take them out, we get the birth certificates, we take them to functions, we drop them in right away with law enforcement because there's been a break. They've always looked at law enforcement, even the COs in the prisons, as the enemy, and they have to see law enforcement in a whole different light. And law enforcement has to see these guys in a whole different light, the value of these guys and the work that they bring to the table. A cop can only say so much, can only do so much. We can go further in reaching these kids than most police officers can.
Well said. So, I mean, one of the things, and you alluded to it earlier, is society stigmatizes people that are coming out. They don't, you know, a lot of people don't realize that, you know, people that end up in jail or end up in low poverty, you know, areas, they don't know any other way. And they feel like no one understands their voice or hears their voice or gives a shit about their story. How can society, instead of stigmatizing these people, provide hope for people that are getting out?
Well, I'm glad you said that, because if they came and joined us on our youth diversion or our curfew sweeps, or when the Mothers with a Message, when there's a shooting that takes place and they get to witness it firsthand, then they begin to understand, you know, because we hide behind certain things. We hide in our homes and we hide away from things like this. I don't want to be involved with it. Regardless if they want that or not, they're involved in it. Their taxpayer dollars are going into this. And it's like, if we don't do something about it, these guys are going to come right back into our neighborhoods, their neighborhoods. And if they don't get the help they need, they're going to revert right back to what they know. And it could possibly be you, me, or someone that we know. Family gets hit by something like this, and this is what I tell everybody: stop sticking your head in the ground like an ostrich. It's time to put your hands to the plow. Come to my facility out in Spring Valley. Come put your hands to the plow. Come over and see what I'm dealing with. Not every book is what you think it is. When you flip the cover back, you're going to find out that there's a real person in there. And yes, our guys take full responsibility for what they've done. But let me give you an example. I got a couple guys that I've worked with that were born heroin addicts. Imagine that little baby the mom's giving birth, and you know, being born a heroin addict. So what chance does that baby really have from the get-go? Not making any excuses for the crime that he committed, because as you get older, you're accountable for the crimes you get. But think about the demographic. The baby's born on heroin. The baby's addicted. Now you got to wean the baby off the addiction. The baby's born with a hole in the heart because of the addiction. Mom and dad get taken away to prison because of the drug addiction and this baby being born that way. And then the whole family's gang inducted, and everybody's in gangs, and that's all this child knows. Now, I'm not saying that's the norm for every person, but let's just put that person in perspective. What do you think that person's chances are of making it? Not very good. But I've seen miracle after miracle. But the guys that I work with, I've seen God's magic hand on these guys miraculously touch their lives. And what they've said is that they felt the touch of God, something so special, and it was a soft touch, and it was love, something that they never, ever witnessed before. And it's amazing what a little bit of love will do to someone.
Oh yeah, big time. Big time. So you do volunteer work today with the San Diego Police Department with their juvenile diversion program. When you're doing the curfew sweeps and stuff like that, and you first meet a youth, what's the first thing that you say to them?
What the heck are you doing out this late? No, I mean, it depends. If it's a curfew sweep, you'd be amazed. We've seen young kids. You see 7, 8, 9-year-olds and little girls, little boys, and they'll be with 20-something-year-old, adults and stuff like that. What do you think's going on?
Right.
Nothing good. And so this is what we've been trying to, to break that cycle. And of course, there's a lot of young girls and boys that are getting, human trafficking and stuff like that. So I got kids. I just can't imagine one of my kids being abducted and taken away for a stupid mistake. And so you'd be amazed how many parents are really ticked off when they come and they pick up their kids thinking that they were going to be at little Susie's house, and little Susie said, I'm going to be over at Joni's house, and neither one of them were at each other's house, but they were out, if you want to say, hooching around. And the mom said, wait a second, when you left our house, you were dressed this way, and now you got this little mini skirt like this. These kids don't know what they're up against. They have no idea what's out there. There's so many predators, and it doesn't have to be sexual predator. It's somebody out there that's got the slick moves, slick talk, want to get them and get them bound to a drug, and then they can control them.
Yeah, so true. So what are some strategies that you share with youth in your talks or in the community to help lead them to a better lifestyle?
Well, let me tell you, first thing is that we try not to be counselors.
Right.
We try not to, talk at them, but talk to them. And it's very important. So I think the most powerful thing that we do as a group is our testimony, to share what we did wrong. See, you can tell somebody, don't, no, and we're all used to no, and that's N-O.
Yeah.
But why? And that's the kind of no that I like, K-N-O-W. To know why you shouldn't. And so we use our testimonies and we just share where we made our mistakes and paint the picture, drive that story in until it's driven in deep inside them.
Yeah. So what has been some of the biggest challenges you faced since your road to redemption in 1996, both personally and in your work, and how do you overcome those challenges?
Well, when you take people's burdens upon you and you make it personal, I think that's the hardest thing. And you get close to people and they die. You get close to people and they go back to prison. They get close to you, they move away. They get close to you, they fail. I think that's the hardest hardship that I face, in what I do. The other second one is that the other Goliath is always money. You know what I mean? When you work with the state, sometimes the Democrats and the Republicans can't even balance the budget. And so if they can't do that, then nobody gets paid. And so we suffer in that area. So finances has always been a big problem. There's never enough money.
Right. Okay. So how do you guys overcome that challenge?
Well, there's been sometimes up to 5 months we didn't get paid from the state. How do we do it? I have to give all credit to God. We have outside people that believe in our ministry. We learn to adapt and cut. The pastors will take a cut in pay, sometimes next to nothing. We'll go out and work second jobs, whatever it takes to keep the ministry going, because, we understand hard times. Believe me, training center and our staff and our leadership understand hard times.
I love it because it's like no matter what, you're going to continue doing this work.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And going to that, Dennis, you're also a pastor.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Tell me more about that. When did you become a pastor? And when did you know
that's the
you had
last thing that I ever thought I would ever be a pastor. And when I first got saved and I went to the church, and I remember my dad and mom would take me to church every day, and I would go there and get dropped off about 8 in the morning, and I would work with youth development, and youth development was a 1-800 hit home. And what we did is we monitored calls all over the world, and it was a suicide hotline for teens. And so you'd be amazed how many kids would call in and they're about to commit suicide, and we had the opportunity to talk them out of it and let them know once again how much God loves them. They always have, they always will. And so I was going to church every day. I was a safe haven for me. And so my mom and dad would take me and they would pick me up. I did whatever it took to, whatever was asked of me. I mopped floors. I did toilets. I washed dishes. I fed people. I answered phones. I was there at 4 o'clock in the morning, setting the church chairs up for church, Sunday morning church service, whatever was asked of me. And I was grateful because I was drug free. And I did this for such a long time that as I began to see and hang around pastors, I began to see what they did. And I began the whole ministry lifestyle. And then next thing you know, people were saying, hey, you're going to be a pastor someday. No, I'm not. And people kept saying, no, I'm not. And, I know I'm cool with that. I already see how much trials they go through and how the devil hits them here and there. And you know, and I'm cool with it. I just want to be Dennis Martinez. I don't want to be world champion Dennis Martinez. I don't want to be U.S. champion Dennis Martinez. I just want to be Dennis Martinez, son of God.
But then you became a pastor.
I did. Against all odds, I became a pastor. And how, I don't even know how it happened, but it happened. And I'm going on 15 years now doing it.
Wow.
Yeah, man. Yeah. Are you happy you did it?
Oh, I'm glad.
Yeah.
I'm glad. And, you know, even with the hardship when it comes, and, you know, my phone is on 24/7.
I hear it over there buzzing.
Yeah, it is 24/7. I get calls. I rush to the hospital before somebody dies, you know, and they want, you know, give their last rites. And some are friends of mine, their parents are stubborn, haven't given their life to the Lord, and they want me to plead before they pass away. So, you know, and then you never get an emergency call. You know, my daughter needs something happen at school. I got to run and pick her up. My sons, you never know.
Yeah, yeah. So, do you get a lot of fathers in your program?
Yeah, a lot of fathers.
And what has been, you know, some of the things that you hear with them? Because fatherhood, it seems to be like a forgotten thing in our society. So,
well, the reason why it's a forgotten thing is because most men, well, I shouldn't say that. The men, the demographic I work with, are not really, in my opinion, men. They're stuck in gang lifestyle. They're stuck in addiction. They're stuck in prison politics. And so for me, I don't have a problem telling them the truth. And, you know, and they get it. You know, they hear me. And I don't mean it in any disrespect, but, you know, anybody can be a sperm donor and anybody can just have sex. But it's raising your kid. And I'll use this analogy. I talked to a group of guys in prison, and most of these guys raised their hand because they were fathers. And so I gave a scenario, and I said, okay, how many have daughters? And it was like 60% of the men in there had daughters. And I said, okay, so why? Let's just give a scenario. While you're in here shucking and jiving, and while you guys are playing gangster and politics, and, you know, you guys are telling war stories and stuff like that, some other guy out there is with your woman.
Yeah. And
some other guy is raising your kids. And now let's take this scenario deeper. Say this guy touches your daughter, molests her. And I said, how would you guys feel? And all the hands went up. I'd kill, blah, 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 blah. And I would say, why are you mad? And they would look at me like perplexed. And I said, you know, here's the deal, is that if you were a man and you were home taking care of your kids, this wouldn't happen. And I said, because you're in here, because you chose something other than your family, these scenarios do happen. So if you want to get mad, and look in the mirror and see who the real culprit is.
And that's probably the best way I've heard that. Because, you know, a lot of times you hear the excuse of, I never had a father. I was scared. I didn't know what to do. I remember with me personally, when I was 19 having my first child, the thought of running occurred to me because I was, what am I going to do?
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Yeah.
So that was beautifully said, man, because that's really what you got to do, especially if you look at it. Some of those dudes might have been in the lifestyle of pimping and pandering. And when you bring that up, you know, a friend of mine actually was into pimping and pandering. His firstborn child was a daughter. Immediately, I asked him a question. I said, man, so are you going to change? Like, are you going to bring her up in this lifestyle? And of course, around other friends, it was, yeah. And then it was later on, hey, man, you know, that kind of touched home a little bit. Don't speak to me like that again. Getting offensive with me. But it's like, you know, it's the truth.
Well, think about it. You know, scenarios, like I said, the thousands of inmates that I've been with, I've met many guys that said exactly what you said. And he said, I find my daughter calling me, and she's fizzing, and she's on the tracks, and she's getting pimped out. And here I did that to some other parent's kid and stuff. And I'm feeling what it's like and stuff. And that's what helped him, made him change. And then his firstborn, you know, you hear another one, my son, we were in the same prison yard together, and he's hanging out with the same guys that I hang out with and stuff like that. And so I asked him, how does that make you feel? And he said, man, I'm upset. And so what are you going to do about it? He says, I'm changed. I'm going to change. And since, like this one guy, since he's changed, his daughter is cleaned up. She's gone to college. His son is out, and things have changed. And I told him, man, when you do right, things will change in your life.
Yeah. So, you know, it's kind of funny. It goes to what I was reading something this morning, and it's like everything in your life that you want is on the other side of fear.
Mm-hmm.
Fear is what's preventing you from changing. You know, the fact that okay, in fact, growing up in Southeast San Diego, everybody in my family's from this hood. I got to be from this hood. But if I dare to change, oh my God, my uncles who have been in this lifestyle for fucking 40 years are going to look at me and be like, dude, you know, you did something different. You didn't follow the trend. You set your own standards.
Yeah.
And I think that's what really the message we got to get across to our youth a lot of the times is that, you know, stop following what you see other people doing and set your own standards. Be your own man.
And that's our message. Okay, so we do this on the outside, but we do it inside the prison. We hold big prison yards events, and where we get the masses of men together, and we lay into them in love, and we ask them for their help to put the stop to the violence and the killing and the pimping and the human trafficking that's out here, and then the type of program that we bring in, you know, really hits home to these guys, and we've seen changes in a lot of these guys, and then a lot of these guys write and want to come to our program and, you know, be a part of what we're doing. So, you know, we're putting our work on in the inside, you know, and there's a lot of guys that are stuck on stupid. They're not going to change, and, you know, hey, that's cool, and whatever it's going to take to really get their attention. And like I said, if something happens to your kids, you know, you shouldn't be mad. If you're going to be mad at yourself.
What's the biggest joy you receive of serving others?
Change, watching them change, watching their lives get touched, seeing them reunite with their family. There's no trophy, there's no paycheck, there's nothing in the whole wide world that you can explain what it's like to see that when it happens.
Yeah. So what's going on with X-Fest? You got X-Fest coming up April 11th. Tell our listeners a little bit more about that.
Yeah, X-Fest is, I think we're on our 4th year. It started out with Skate with the Pros, and then we saw how successful that was, and then we decided let's go bigger, and so we've grown, and now we've changed the demographics of the area where we're going to be doing it. We're going to be doing it at the Boys and Girls Club on Imperial Avenue, and we're prayerfully hoping to, you know, block off the street, and we're definitely going to have FMX this time. I believe they committed to it. I'm not 100% sure. I don't have the emails with me right now, but last time I met with them, which was last week, we got the green light, and they were just checking on the final date, and they really want to do this, so that's going to really draw a lot of kids and family, and I think we're going to do a food distribution this time where we'll be able to feed the neighborhood and get groceries out there, and you know, again, bring in whatever sports team, Padres, Chargers, Soccers, whoever, and, you know, the BMX, the rock climbing, the graffiti, the lowrider car show and car hopping and all that good stuff. I mean, just whatever the kids are into, and we're going to show them a healthy way to live their life without, you know, doing gangs, drugs, and stuff like that.
I love it, man. I love it. So if people wanted to get down and support your guys' effort, how would they be able to do so?
You can contact us at the training center, you know, and it's easy. You can write to us, or you can even email me at prisonlife@gmail.com. That's prisonlife@gmail.com. Or you can call us at the training center, and it's 619-327-5400. And you can call there and say, yeah, we'd like to help out with the X-Fest, whether it be volunteer work, financially, whatever. And again, the reason why we do it in the Southeast areas, if you look at the demographics, there's no big shopping malls, there's no movie theaters, there really isn't much there compared to La Jolla, you know, different areas like that. I ain't mad at you, La Jolla, but, you know, but where we're at, yeah, Del Mar, all those places where
it's hard to even find a grocery store.
Yeah, well, yeah, you know, and everybody's got bars up in front of their, you know, in front of their places and stuff like that. But for us, you know, we like doing it there, and it's free. It's 100% free, and you know, help us out.
And then,
what's the date on that?
Saturday, April 11th, and I believe it'll be from 12 to 4.
It's a free event?
It's a free event. Bring your families. We'll have flyers out. You'll hear more about it. We'll get it into the schools, into the neighborhoods, and hopefully we'll have billboards again. The people that have the billboards have been gracious to us by giving us, you know, a donation for that. So it's going to be good.
Sweet. So if there's only one thing, you know, after you know, years from now, when you're long gone, retired, chilling, you know, doing your thing, what is the one thing you want people to say about you?
That he cared.
Yeah.
That he cared. And for my legacy is my family. And for my legacy is other guys' families. And so what I'm trying to do is make more of me's out there, which reproduces me's. And that's what I've been doing. I've been working with a hard demographic, and I've taken a few men on, not everyone, but I've taken a few men on, and I've been discipling them, and I'm involved in their lives, and I've gone with them through the hard times and through the good times, and we've stuck it out. And I think I might even say that we're more tightly as a family than, like a lot of families and stuff. We've become their families, and a lot of families have turned their backs on them. And, I've seen great miracles happen, but, I want these guys to know that, let's leave a legacy. I tell the dudes that are still kids inside prison, I said, what's going to happen is your obituary is going to say he was a cool dude, but he couldn't change. And for us, I always say boys make excuses, but men change. And so, I challenge these guys to become men.
Yeah. So, are there any final words of wisdom you have for us?
Yes, I want to let everybody that's listening, whether you believe or not, God loves you. He always has. He always will.
Hey, Dennis, thank you so much for taking the time out of your day to come and join us here on Thrivecast. Your work for me personally has been something that I admire very much. I'm really thrilled to have you, man. And thank you for taking this time out of your day, and definitely look forward to having you back again.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, thank you for coming by, and I want to also thank your wife and your family, because I've seen you work. I've been with you at a few events, and there's times you work from 5 in the morning till 10 o'clock at night, or sometimes you go days at a time because you're at the prison doing the prison ministry. And I just thank you for your work, and for your wife and your family, and for being so giving and helping us change the youth, and because that's my passion too. And I just thank you for keeping our kids alive.
It's a team effort. Again, it's not a one-man show. It's a team effort, and when we all work together and use our gifts, everybody has different gifts, and when we put them together, we function as a body, and that's what we're doing.
So, just real quickly, I have a question for both of you guys, right? For our listeners, can you kind of share what it would be if they were to be at one of the lectures that you guys do together? What would it be like when they see Mothers with the Message and then they see you speak, Dennis?
Well, what I love about it is when we speak together is that, these guys talk about what they did.
Right.
And then the moms get up there and say, what they did, I witnessed. I've witnessed that. My kids were murdered. And, so a lot of the guys I have are murderers, and, have done some heinous crimes and stuff like that. But, and it's good because they get to hear it from the mom's side, the mom's perspective. And so a lot of them, get challenged, and that helps them grow. Yeah. It really makes them see that, wow, what I did really,
full circle.
What I really did, I hurt a lot of people.
Yeah.
Right.
It's so that motivates us even more to do what we do.
Because it brings when Mothers with the Message speaks, it makes them give a face to the victim.
Yeah.
They get to see the pain of a mother, the pain of an entire family. Now it's right in their face. They can't hide from it. They can't close their eyes because we're right there. And then we develop this friendship, and then they get to know us even more, and they're like, we're so sorry, because we were one of those that committed something so horrible that now we caused you pain for a lifetime. So it's very nice to work. It's very comforting, and it brings some peace to us to be able to work with them.
I can imagine as a youth being in the audience watching that, hearing your guys' story, and then seeing what my actions could eventually cause.
Right.
That's enough right there to want to change, to want to do better. And I think that's why it's so powerful. You guys, when you guys do speak together, it's a powerful statement. It's bringing everything full circle for people who might not be looking about. I'm hearing the culture today and the lifestyle today, and I'm not looking at what might happen tomorrow. But Mothers with the Message kind of puts it out there to you, and you guys put it out there to you too. Like, you're gonna end up in prison, dude.
Right.
You're gonna end up bending over for some other dude.
That's it. Yep.
Oh man, so you guys, April 11th, Saturday, April 11th, X Fest. You know, you guys got you want to get involved in this. Trust me, it's one of the biggest events we have here in our community. One of the most positive, empowering events we have here in our community. You can go to Google the SD Training Center. I believe it's sdtrainingcenter.com. You can email Dennis at prisonlife@gmail.com, or you can call the training center at 619-327-5400. I definitely urge everybody to get involved, and I look forward to seeing you guys next week here on Thrivecast. Good to go.
Yeah.